The tribunal hall floated in the darkness of space, a massive ring of metal and crystal that orbited the neutral world below. Inside, 10,000 alien beings filled the chamber. Their voices echoed off the walls like waves crashing on a shore. Some had scales that glittered under the bright lights. Others were made of living crystal that hummed with inner energy. A few existed as clouds of gas held together by magnetic fields inside transparent suits. At the center of it all stood one human. Ji-Won Park looked small compared to the creatures around him. He wore a simple dark suit. Earth-made, nothing fancy. His black hair was neatly combed. His hands rested calmly on the podium in front of him. He did not shake. He did not sweat. He simply waited. Vorji. Vorji. Above him, on a platform that seemed to hang in the air, sat the 5 magistrates who would judge this case. The center seat held Elder Theron Vul, a being that looked like a cross between a mantis and a dragon. His 4 eyes studied Ji-Won with an expression that might have been amusement. Theron had lived for 4,000 years. He had seen species rise and fall. To him, humans were children, playing at being adults. Let the record show. Theron's voice boomed through the chamber, translated instantly into 10,000 languages, that we are gathered to address the human claim of founding species status within the Galactic Federation. The crowd stirred. Whispers filled the air like rustling leaves. Ji-Won remained still. To his left, a Valorian representative stood. Valorians were beings of living crystal, their bodies reflecting light in rainbow patterns. This one was called Hectus, and he served as the chief scientist of his people. When he spoke, his voice sounded like wind chimes. "The evidence is clear," Hectus announced. "Human civilization is barely 200,000 years old. Their written history spans mere thousands of years. They achieved spaceflight only 3 centuries ago. By what logic do they claim founding status alongside civilizations millions of years old?" Laughter rippled through the chamber. Not kind laughter. The sound of it was sharp, cutting. Ji-Won still did not move. To his right, a Nexari collective representative pulsed with bioluminescent light. The Nexari were not individuals, but groups that shared one mind. This collective spoke with 1,000 voices at once, creating an eerie harmony. "We propose the correct classification," the Nexari said. "Earth should be designated a juvenile world. Its people granted limited participation rights. They must pay standard tribute for use of established trade routes. They must accept guidance from elder civilizations. This is the proper order of things." Every T. Every T. Every T. More voices joined in agreement. The sound grew louder, more insistent. On the platform, Magistrate Theron raised one clawed hand. Silence fell instantly. "The human representative will now speak," Theron said. His tone suggested he expected nothing of value. "State your defense of Earth's claim." Note: Ji-Won looked up at the 5 magistrates. Then he turned slowly, his gaze sweeping across the massive chamber. 10,000 alien eyes watched him. Some were curious. Most were dismissive. A few seemed angry that he dared to waste their time. He spoke quietly, but his voice carried through the chamber's amplification system. "I am Ji-Won Park of Earth. I represent my world and my people. In this matter." He paused. The silence stretched. "The honorable magistrates and representatives ask by what right humanity claims founding species status. They point to our age, our technology, our brief recorded history. These are fair questions." Another pause. Ji-Won's hands remained steady on the podium, but the question contains an assumption. The assumption is that age alone determines legitimacy, that whoever arrived first owns what comes after, that power and antiquity are the same as right. Theron leaned forward slightly. His 4 eyes narrowed. "You will answer the question directly, human. Do you or do you not have evidence to support your claim?" "I do," Ji-Won said simply. The chamber erupted in noise. Aliens called out in their various languages. Some demanded he present it immediately. Others laughed at the audacity. A few simply watched with renewed interest. Theron raised his hand again. Silence returned, but slower this time. Then present this evidence now. The magistrate commanded. I request a recess of 5 days, Jiwan said. The evidence is being transported from Earth. It will arrive within that time. 5 days. Hectus the Valorian chimed with what sounded like scorn. You come before this tribunal unprepared? You waste the time of 10,000 worlds? The evidence I will present cannot be transmitted digitally, Jiwan explained. It must be physically transported. It must be verified in person. I ask for 5 days to ensure its safe arrival. Theron conferred with the other magistrates in a language of clicks and whistles that the translators did not process. After a long moment, he turned back to Jiwan. You will have 3 days, Theron declared. Not 1 hour more. If your evidence does not arrive, if it fails to support your claim, Earth will accept the tribunal's judgment without further appeal. Do you accept these terms? Jiwan nodded once. Then, this session is recessed. We will reconvene in exactly 3 days. The gavel came down with a sound like thunder. As the chamber began to empty, Jiwan remained at his podium. He watched the aliens file out in their various ways. Some walked, some flew, some simply teleported away in flashes of light. They talked among themselves. And though the translator in his ear could not catch every conversation, he heard enough. The human is a fool. 3 days to prove the impossible. Earth will be a tributary world by week's end. When the chamber was nearly empty, a shadow fell across Jiwan's podium. He looked up to find Magistrate Theron standing before him. Without his elevated platform, the ancient being was even more imposing. His head nearly touched the ceiling 3 meters above. A word of advice, human, Theron said quietly. Withdraw your claim. Accept a lesser status. Earth is a beautiful world with a vibrant people. There is no shame in being young. But there is great danger in overreaching. Jiwan met his gaze steadily. Is that a threat, Magistrate? An observation. The trade routes near your space are valuable. Very valuable. There are those who would prefer to control them without human interference. If you lose this case, Earth loses more than status. You understand? I understand perfectly, G17 said. That's why I cannot withdraw. G17. G17. I was not 17. G17. Theron studied him for a long moment. Then something that might have been respect flickered in his ancient eyes. You are either very brave or very foolish, G1 Park. In 3 days, we will learn which. The magistrate turned and walked away, his footsteps echoing in the empty chamber. G1 finally allowed himself to take a deep breath. His hands, which had been so steady during the session, trembled slightly now. He gripped the podium until they stilled. 3 days. Everything depended on the next 3 days. He pulled a small communication device from his pocket and activated it. After a moment, a holographic image appeared. It showed a woman with tied-back hair and tired eyes. She was sitting in a laboratory on Earth, surrounded by screens and equipment. Heman, Ji1 said. I need a status update. The woman, Heman Choi, rubbed her eyes. Captain Doyoon launched 4 hours ago. He's pushing the engines as hard as they'll go. If everything goes perfectly, he'll arrive with 18 hours to spare. And if it doesn't go perfectly, Heman's expression darkened. Then we'll find out if everything we've worked for can survive a 3-day journey through hostile space. Ji1 closed his eyes briefly. Tell Doyoon to be careful. Someone tried to sabotage this before the tribunal even convened. They'll try again. He knows. He's ready. Good. And the artifacts? They're secure. 7 containers, each sealed and shielded. G1, if even one of them gets damaged. They won't, G1 said with more confidence than he felt. They can't. The whole galaxy depends on what's inside those containers. They just don't know it yet. Heman managed a weak smile. No pressure then. No pressure, Jiwan agreed. I'll contact you in 12 hours. Park out. The hologram vanished. Jiwan stood alone in the empty tribunal hall. Through the transparent walls, he could see the stars scattered across the darkness. Somewhere out there, a ship, called the Persistence, was racing toward him. It carried the proof that would change everything. If it arrived in time, if it arrived at all, he turned and walked toward the exit. He had 3 days to prepare his presentation. 3 days to organize evidence that would challenge beliefs held for millions of years. 3 days to prove that humanity deserved its place among the stars. 3 days to save his world. The door slid shut behind him with a soft hiss. In the empty chamber, only the stars bore witness to what was coming. Captain Do-yoon Kim gripped the controls of the Persistence as the ship shuddered around him. Alarms blared in the cockpit. Red warning lights flashed across every screen. Behind him, somewhere in the cargo bay, 7 sealed containers held the future of humanity, or its doom. Hull breach in Section 4, his co-pilot reported. The young woman's voice stayed calm, despite the chaos. Her name was Mira, and she had been flying with Do-yoon for 3 years. Sealing it now. How close are they? Do-yoon asked. 3 ships, 2,000 kilometers and closing. They're not trying to hail us. They're just shooting. Do-yoon pushed the engines harder. The ship groaned in protest. They were already going faster than the Persistence was designed to handle. The metal frame was not meant for this kind of stress, but they had no choice. Time to Nexus Prime? He asked. 4 hours at current speed. But Captain, the engines won't last 4 hours at this pace. We're burning through coolant twice as fast as we should. Then we'll make it in 3.5, Do-yoon said grimly. Divert all power from life support to engines. We can breathe recycled air for a few hours. Mira hesitated only a second. Then her fingers flew across the controls. Done. But if those ships catch us before we reach Federation space, they won't. Another impact rocked the ship. This time, the sound was louder, closer. Something exploded in the rear compartments. That was a direct hit to our shield generator, Mira said. Her calm was cracking now. We have no shields. One more solid hit, and we're dead. Do-yoon's jaw tightened. He looked at the navigation display. Still, too far from safety. The 3 pursuing ships were gaining. Their weapons were better. Their shields were stronger. The only advantage the Persistence had was desperation. Open a channel, Do-yoon ordered. Wide broadcast. Emergency frequency. Channel open. Do-yoon took a breath. This is Captain Do-yoon Kim of Earth Vessel Persistence. We are under attack by unknown hostiles. We are en route to Nexus Prime carrying protected diplomatic cargo. Any Federation vessels in range, we request immediate assistance. Silence answered him. Empty space stretched in all directions. No help was coming. Try again, Do-yoon said. Captain. They're not going to answer. We're in disputed territory. Officially, Federation patrols don't come here. Then unofficially? Mira checked her sensors. Nothing. We're alone. Another blast struck the ship. The lights flickered. For a terrifying moment, Do-yoon thought they would lose power completely. Then the emergency systems kicked in, and the lights returned. Dimmer than before. We've lost the port engine, Mira reported. Compensating with starboard. Speed dropping to 60%. Do-yoon calculated quickly in his head. At 60%, they would not reach Nexus Prime in time. The trial would begin without them. Ji-won would stand before the tribunal with no evidence. Earth would lose. Unless, Mira, what's our cargo mass? She frowned. About 2,000 kilograms. Why? And how much does it slow us down? Captain, no. Those containers are what we're dying to protect. Answer the question. Mira pulled up the calculations. If we jettison the cargo, we could increase speed by 20%. Maybe 25 if we dump all non-essential systems too. Doyun stared at the navigation screen. His mind raced through options. All of them were bad. How many containers would we need to jettison to reach Nexus Prime in time? All of them, Mira said quietly. Even then, it's not guaranteed. The ship shook again. More alarms joined the chorus. They were being torn apart. Piece by piece. There has to be another way. Doyun muttered. There isn't. I'm sorry, Captain. We can save ourselves, or we can save the cargo. Not both. Doyun closed his eyes. He thought about Jiwan standing alone in that tribunal hall. He thought about Earth, his home, waiting for news. He thought about the 7 containers in the cargo bay and what they represented. He opened his eyes. No, he said firmly. We save both. How? We make them think we jettisoned the cargo. Doyun's fingers moved across the controls. Mira, access the decoy system. We're going to launch every decoy drone we have. Program them to match our cargo container's signatures. Understanding dawned on Mira's face. They'll think the containers are escaping. They'll have to split their forces to pursue them. Exactly. And while they're chasing ghosts, we slip past into Federation space. It's risky. If even one of them stays on us, then we better make our decoys convincing. Mira worked quickly. Her hands moved with practiced precision across the control panel. Decoys ready. I can launch 7 of them in different directions. Each will broadcast the exact signature of our cargo containers. Do it. 7 small objects shot out from the Persistence in 7 different directions. Instantly, they began broadcasting signals identical to the real containers. To enemy sensors, it would look like the Persistence had jettisoned its entire cargo in a desperate attempt to gain speed. Doyun watched the pursuing ships on his scanner. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then, exactly as he hoped, the 3 ships split apart. 2 of them peeled away to pursue the decoys. Only one remained on the Persistence. It worked, Mira breathed. 2 are gone. Now we only have to outrun 1 ship. Doyun pushed the engines again. The Persistence surged forward. Without 3 ships shooting at them, they had a chance. Small, but real. The remaining enemy ship fired. The blast went wide. They're trying to disable us, not destroy us, Mira observed. They want the cargo intact. Too bad they're chasing the wrong target. Doyun allowed himself a tight smile. How long until we reach Federation space? 2 hours. But Captain, that ship is still faster than us. They'll catch up before then. Then we need to slow them down. Doyun accessed the ship's defensive systems. The Persistence was not a warship. It had minimal weapons. But it did have one advantage that civilian ships often overlooked. Mira, how much fuel do we have in reserve? About 30%. Why? Because we're going to dump it. Right in their path. Dump our fuel? Captain, we need that to land. We need to reach Nexus Prime first. Trust me. Mira hesitated. Then she nodded. Dumping fuel reserves now. A stream of highly volatile fuel poured out behind the Persistence. It spread out in a thin cloud, invisible to the naked eye but very much present. Now target it with our rear laser, Doyun ordered. Lowest power setting. We just need a spark. The laser fired. It touched the fuel cloud. The explosion lit up the darkness of space like a newborn sun. The pursuing ship had no time to react. It plunged straight into the fireball. Doyun watched on the scanner. As the enemy vessel tumbled out of control, its shields overloaded, its sensors blinded. Direct hit. Mira reported, with barely contained excitement. They're alive, but disabled. They won't be following us. Doyun let out a breath he did not know he was holding. Time to Federation space? 90 minutes. We're going to make it, Captain. The next hour passed in tense silence. Every minute brought them closer to safety. Every minute also drained their damaged systems further. By the time they crossed into Federation space, half the ship's systems were offline. They were flying on backup power and prayer. But they were safe. Nexus Prime Traffic Control is hailing us, Mira said. They're asking about our condition. Tell them we need immediate docking clearance, emergency priority, and send word to Jiwon Park. Tell him his evidence is arriving. Mira sent the messages. A moment later, a response came through. Traffic control is clearing a path for us. We have priority landing clearance at Dock 7. And Captain, there's a message from Park. He says, and I quote, "Thank you. Now hurry up." Do-yoon laughed. It was a tired, ragged sound. The Persistence limped toward the massive station orbiting Nexus Prime. Its hull was scorched and breached in a dozen places. One engine was completely gone. The other sputtered and smoked. But it was still flying, still carrying its precious cargo. As they approached the docking bay, Do-yoon saw a figure waiting on the platform. Even from this distance, he recognized Jiwon Park. The man stood perfectly still, hands clasped behind his back, watching the damaged ship approach. The Persistence touched down with a groan of stressed metal. Systems began shutting down automatically. The journey was over. Do-yoon stood on shaky legs. His body ached from hours of tension. His uniform was soaked with sweat. But he smiled. "We made it," he said. "Barely," Mira replied. But she was smiling too. They made their way to the cargo bay. The 7 containers sat exactly where they had been loaded 3 days ago on Earth. They were intact. Undamaged. Perfect. The cargo bay door opened. Jiwon entered, followed by 2 security guards. He looked at the containers, then at Do-yoon. His expression remained neutral, but something in his eyes might have been relief. "Captain Kim," Jiwon said formally, "you're late. We ran into some complications. I can see that. Your ship looks like it went through a war. 3 ships tried to stop us. They really didn't want this evidence to arrive." Jiwon's expression hardened. "They failed. The trial resumes in 6 hours. Can these containers be moved safely?" "Yes. They're shielded and sealed. Whatever's inside is fine." "Good." Jiwon turned to the security guards. "Transport these to the tribunal hall. Maximum security. I want guards on them every second." As the guards began carefully moving the containers, Jiwon stepped closer to Do-yoon. He lowered his voice. "Thank you, Captain. I know what you risked to bring these here." Do-yoon shrugged. "Just doing my job." "No. You went beyond your job. You could have saved yourself and abandoned the cargo. The fact that you didn't says everything about why Earth deserves its place among the stars." He extended his hand. Do-yoon shook it firmly. "Make it count," Do-yoon said. 3 good people died defending that cargo in orbit. Whatever's in those containers, it better be worth it." Jiwon's expression grew somber. "It is. It will change everything. That's what I'm hoping for." As the last container was wheeled away, Jiwon followed. Do-yoon watched him go, then looked at Mira. "What now, Captain?" Do-yoon smiled wearily. "Now we watch. And we hope that whatever evidence Jiwon has in those containers is enough to win this case. Because if it's not, we just destroyed our ship for nothing." But as he said it, Do-yoon realized he did not believe that. Jiwon had the look of a man who held winning cards. The real question was not whether the evidence was enough. The question was whether the galaxy was ready for what it was about to learn. The tribunal hall filled with alien representatives once more. 3 days had passed since Jiwon made his bold claim. Now, the time for proof had arrived. The 10,000 beings who filled the chamber spoke among themselves in countless languages. The sound was like a river rushing over stones. Jiwon stood at his podium. Behind him, arranged on a platform, sat the 7 containers. Each was sealed with locks that required both physical keys and genetic verification to open. Guards surrounded them, weapons ready. After the attack on the Persistence, no one was taking chances. Magistrate Theron called the session to order. His 4 eyes fixed on Jiwan, with an expression that might have been curiosity, or perhaps just impatience. The human representative claimed he possessed evidence to support Earth's founding species status, Theron announced. 3 days have passed. The evidence has arrived. We will now hear what humanity has to say for itself. Jiwan bowed slightly to the magistrates. Then he turned to address the entire chamber. Thank you, honored magistrates. Thank you, representatives of the 10,000 worlds. What I present today will challenge your understanding of galactic history. I ask only that you keep an open mind and examine the evidence objectively. A Valorian in the front row made a sound like wind through crystal. It was laughter. Others joined in. Jiwan ignored them. He gestured to the first container. 2 guards wheeled it forward and unlocked it with careful precision. Inside, protected by layers of shielding, sat what looked like a simple black cube. It was roughly the size of a human head. This object, Jiwan said, was recovered from beneath the ice sheet of Europa, one of Jupiter's moons. It was found at a depth of 15 kilometers, embedded in ice that has been frozen for 4.3 billion years. He lifted the cube carefully. It caught the light and seemed to absorb it, showing no reflection at all. This is a data storage device. Using quantum dating techniques verified by 3 independent laboratories, we have confirmed its age. 4.3 billion years old, nearly as old as our solar system itself. The chamber grew quieter. Some aliens leaned forward to see better. Hectus, the Valorian chief scientist, stood. Impossible. No civilization existed 4 billion years ago. The oldest known species in this galaxy emerged only 2 billion years ago. This must be a natural formation, misidentified as technology. That was my first thought as well, Jiwan admitted, until we decoded what was stored inside. He activated a holographic display. Mathematical formulas appeared in the air above the tribunal hall. They were complex, beautiful, and undeniably artificial. These are equations for faster-than-light travel. They are identical to the formulas every spacefaring race in this galaxy uses. The exact same mathematics. Not similar. Identical. And quote. Adentel. Adentel. Murmurs spread through the crowd. The Valorian scientist's crystal body pulsed with different colors. A sign of agitation. This proves nothing, Hectus chimed. The mathematics of the universe are universal. Any sufficiently advanced species would discover the same formulas. Convergent development. Normally, I would agree, Jiwan said. Except for one problem. These formulas include shortcuts and notations that are not mathematically necessary. They are stylistic choices, teaching methods. Yet, every major spacefaring civilization uses these exact same stylistic choices. The odds of that happening independently are astronomical. He let that sink in. Then he gestured to the second container. But perhaps you are right. Perhaps this is coincidence. Let me show you something else. The second container opened. Inside were dozens of small vials, each containing what looked like frozen samples. These are genetic samples from 17 different species. Valorian, Keltheron, Nexari, and 14 others. They were collected with full permission and verified by your own scientists. Jiwan activated another display. This time, it showed strands of DNA spiraling in the air. Our xenobiologist, Suji Nam, made a remarkable discovery. All 17 species share identical genetic markers in their fundamental code. Small sequences that serve no biological purpose. They are like signatures. Watermarks. A Nexari collective representative pulsed with bioluminescent light. When it spoke, its 1,000 voices sounded troubled. This is impossible. Our species evolved on worlds hundreds of thousands of light-years apart. There can be no common genetic heritage. Exactly, Jiwan said. Which means these markers were not natural. They were designed. Placed deliberately. The chamber erupted in noise. Aliens shouted in their languages. Some demanded proof. Others called Jiwan a liar. A few sat in stunned silence. Theron raised his hand. It took longer this time for silence to return. These claims are extraordinary, the magistrate said slowly. You suggest that multiple species were genetically engineered? By whom? When? Where is your proof of this engineer? I am getting to that, Jiwan promised. But first, one more piece of evidence. He gestured to the third container. This one held ancient stone tablets, covered in strange symbols. They looked primitive, barely recognizable as writing. These tablets were found in a cave in South Africa. They are 75,000 years old. They show symbols that our ancestors carved into rock before they even had agriculture. Before cities. Before writing. As we know it. Jiwan activated a new display. The symbols from the tablets appeared. Then, next to them, he displayed written samples from 34 different alien languages. The similarity was undeniable. 34 supposedly unrelated languages, Jiwan said quietly. All share root structures with symbols carved by humans who had not yet invented the wheel. How is this possible? Waith. Hectus the Valorian was on his feet again. You are suggesting that primitive humans taught language to advanced alien civilizations? This is absurd. Valorian. This absurd. No, Jiwan said. I am suggesting that we all learned from the same teacher. The silence that followed was absolute. 10,000 beings held their breath. There was a civilization, Jiwan continued. Ancient beyond measure. They existed millions of years before any current spacefaring race. They spanned the entire galaxy. Every culture in this hall has myths about them. The Valorians call them the First Lights. The Keltheron name them the Ancient Harmonies. The Nexari remember them as the Original Collective. Humans call them the Precursors. Myths, Theron said. But his voice lacked conviction. Are they? Jiwan asked. Then explain the mathematics. Explain the genetic markers. Explain the language roots. Explain why every civilization in this galaxy uses base 12 mathematics for faster-than-light calculations when our natural counting systems vary wildly. Why 12? Why not 10, or 8, or 16? No one answered. Jiwan pressed forward. I will tell you why. Because the precursors used base 12. And they taught it to everyone. Not directly. They were too wise for that. Instead, they left teachers behind. Teachers? Theron leaned forward. What teachers? Archive species, Jiwan said. Races designed specifically to preserve and pass on knowledge. Humans are one such race. But we are not the only one. He gestured to all 7 containers. Each of these contains a key. Physical objects that resonate with specific genetic frequencies. I have the human key here. But there are others. Magistrate Theron, your people have one too. So do the Valorians. So do the Nexari. So do most of the elder races in this hall. Theron's expression changed. Something flickered in his ancient eyes. You lie, the magistrate said. But his voice was uncertain. Do I? Jiwan opened the 4th container. Inside sat an object that looked like a crystal flower frozen in time. This is the Keltheron key. It was found in your people's most sacred temple, was it not? Kept under guard for millennia. Worshipped but never understood. Theron said nothing. But his silence spoke volumes. Jiwan held up a similar object from the 5th container. This one looked like a sphere of pure light held in a containment field. The Valorian key. Hectus, you know what this is. Your people have one exactly like it in your grand archive. They say it fell from the sky in your people's dawn age. Hectus's crystal body had stopped pulsing. He stood perfectly still. The truth is simple, Jiwan said. We are all children of the precursors. Not by blood, by design. They created archive species across the galaxy. Races that could store knowledge, preserve culture, pass on wisdom. They gave us all the same foundation, the same mathematics, the same language roots, the same genetic markers. Why? Someone in the crowd shouted. Why would they do this? Because they were dying, Jiwan said softly. And they wanted their knowledge to survive. So they scattered it among the stars. They embedded it in us, in our myths, our instincts, our dreams. They made us living libraries. And then, they disappeared. The chamber was silent now. No one laughed. No one mocked. They were all too busy processing what they had just heard. Theron spoke slowly. Even if this is true, it does not prove humanity's claim to founding status. If all races are precursor inheritors, then none have special rights. I agree completely, Jiwan said. This caused a stir. The magistrate looked surprised. You agree? Yes. Humanity is not more important than any other race. We did not arrive first. We are not superior. We are simply one of many inheritors of the precursor legacy. Just like the Valorians. Just like the Keltheron. Just like the Nexari. Jiwan paused. Then he delivered his final blow. But if that is true, then the current power structure of this federation is built on a lie. Age does not determine legitimacy. Military power does not grant rights. The trade routes near Earth do not belong to the Keltheron Empire simply because they are older. They belong to all inheritor species equally. Understanding dawned across the chamber. Aliens looked at each other with new eyes. The implications were staggering. You are not just defending Earth's status, Theron said slowly. You are challenging the entire Federation. I am revealing the truth. Jiwan corrected. What the Federation does with that truth is your choice. But you cannot unknow it. The evidence is here. The keys are real. The genetic markers exist. The mathematics do not lie. He looked around the chamber. We are all inheritors, all equals. The question is whether we will act like it. Magistrate Theron sat back in his seat, his 4 eyes closed. When he opened them again, something had changed in his expression. This tribunal will recess for 18 hours, he announced. The magistrates must deliberate. The evidence presented today requires careful consideration. The gavel fell. As the chamber began to empty, Jiwan remained at his podium. His hands finally shook. The adrenaline that had carried him through the presentation was fading. He had said everything he came to say, shown everything he came to show. Now it was out of his hands. A figure approached. It was Hectus, the Valorian scientist. His crystal body pulsed with uncertain colors. The key you showed, Hectus said quietly. I need to examine it. Why? Because if what you say is true, it will resonate with my genetic frequency. It will awaken something in me, something my people have forgotten. Jiwan studied the alien for a long moment. Then he nodded. After the tribunal concludes, one way or another, the truth will be available to all. Hectus left without another word. Jiwan was alone again. He looked at the 7 containers. Inside them was not just evidence. It was the key to remaking the entire galaxy. For better or worse, he had opened a door that could never be closed. Now he would learn what lay on the other side. 18 hours passed slowly. Jiwan spent them in his quarters, going over every detail of what would come next. He barely slept. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the faces of the 10,000 representatives. Some curious, some angry, all waiting for answers. His communication device chimed. It was Heman, calling from Earth. How did it go? She asked. Her face appeared in holographic form, showing the exhaustion of someone who had not slept either. Better than expected. Worse than hoped, Jiwan replied. They are listening. But listening does not mean accepting. The data from the keys has been analyzed by 17 independent laboratories now. All confirm what we found. The genetic resonance is real. Jiwan nodded. That is not what I am worried about. The evidence is solid. The problem is what it means. I am not just asking them to accept new information. I am asking them to rebuild their entire civilization. Heeman was quiet for a moment. Do you think they will vote for the accord? I think some will. Whether enough will? That is the question. And if they do not? Jiwan did not answer immediately. If the tribunal rejected his proposal, Earth would be classified as a juvenile world. Humanity would lose access to trade routes. Worse, they would lose the protection of founding species status. The attacks on the Persistence would be just the beginning. Then we fight, he said finally. Not with weapons, with truth. We keep presenting the evidence until they cannot ignore it anymore. That could take years, decades. I know. They talked a while longer, going over contingency plans and backup strategies. Finally, Heeman signed off. Jiwan was alone with his thoughts again. The summons came 6 hours before the tribunal was scheduled to reconvene. A private meeting. Magistrate Theron requested his presence. Jiwan found the ancient Keltheron in a meditation chamber near the tribunal hall. Theron stood before a window that showed the stars beyond. He did not turn when Jiwan entered. Do you know how old I am, Jiwan Park? Theron asked. 4,000 years, according to public records. 4,217, Theron corrected. I have served as magistrate for 3,000 of those years. I have presided over 10,000 cases. I have seen species rise to greatness. I have watched others fall to ruin. In all that time, I believed I understood the nature of this galaxy. He finally turned to face Jiwan. You have shattered that understanding in 3 days. I did not mean to cause distress, Magistrate. I only meant to reveal truth. Truth. Theron made a sound that might have been laughter. Such a simple word for such a complicated thing. Come. I want to show you something. He led Jiwan to a small chamber behind the meditation room. Inside sat a pedestal. On it rested an object identical to the Keltheron key Jiwan had shown in the tribunal. This has been in my family for 90 generations, Theron said. We were told it was a blessing from the gods, a symbol of our divine right to lead. I wore it in my youth as a mark of status. Then I locked it away, embarrassed by such primitive superstition. He reached out and touched the key. It began to glow softly. Last night, I took it out again. I held it as you instructed. And something happened. Theron's voice dropped to a whisper. I remembered. Theron's voice. I remembered. Remembered what? Everything. Or perhaps nothing. It is hard to describe. Memories that are not mine. Knowledge I never learned. I saw stars I have never visited. I heard voices speaking languages that do not exist. And I understood them all. Theron looked at Jiwan with something like fear in his ancient eyes. What have you done to me? I have awakened what was always there, Jiwan said gently. The precursors encoded knowledge into the archive species. Not in books or databases. In our very being. The keys unlock that knowledge. They trigger genetic memory. Genetic memory, Theron repeated. The Keltheron have legends of such things. We thought they were myths. Stories to explain instinct and intuition. They were not myths. They were clues. The precursors left breadcrumbs for us to follow. When we became advanced enough, wise enough, we would find them. We would unlock what they left behind. Theron was silent for a long moment. The other magistrates experienced the same thing. We all examined our keys last night. We all remembered. Do you know what this means? It means the truth cannot be denied anymore. It means everything changes. Theron's voice was heavy. The power structures we have built over millions of years, the hierarchies based on age and achievement. All of it crumbles, if we are all equal inheritors. Yes, Jiwan said simply. There will be resistance. The elder species will not give up their privileges easily. There could be war. Or there could be peace. A new beginning. A federation built on actual equality instead of the illusion of it. Theron studied him. You truly believe this? I have to. The alternative is watching my people become servants to civilizations no more legitimate than ours. I will not accept that. Neither should you. The magistrate turned back to the window. When I was young, before I became magistrate, I studied philosophy. There was a concept we discussed often, the idea that all beings are born equal. That status must be earned through action, not inherited through age. It is a human concept as well, Jiwan said. Many of our greatest conflicts have been fought over it. Then perhaps we are not so different after all. Theron picked up the key and held it close. The glow intensified. The tribunal will vote in 6 hours. I cannot tell you what the outcome will be, but I can tell you that whatever happens, you have already changed the galaxy. There is no going back from this. I know. Are you prepared for the consequences? Jiwan thought about Earth. About He-Man working tirelessly in her laboratory. About Captain Doyun and his crew who nearly died bringing the evidence here. About all the humans who would never know how close they came to losing everything. Yes, he said. I am prepared. Theron nodded slowly. Then let us finish this. The tribunal reconvened exactly on schedule. The chamber was even more crowded than before. News of what happened during the recess had spread. Every species wanted to see what would happen next. Jiwan took his place at the podium. The 7 containers remained behind him, their contents now known to all. Magistrate Theron called the session to order. We have deliberated for 18 hours. We have examined the evidence. We have experienced the key's effects personally. We are ready to render judgment. The chamber fell silent. 10,000 beings held their breath. The evidence presented by the human representative is verified and accepted. The data cores are authentic. The genetic markers are real. The linguistic connections are undeniable. The keys function as described. A murmur ran through the crowd. Furthermore, Theron continued, the magistrates have confirmed, through personal experience, that the phenomenon known as genetic memory is real. The precursor civilization existed. They did create archive species. The current spacefaring races are their inheritors. The murmur grew louder. Therefore, the human claim of founding species status is validated. Cheers erupted from the small human delegation in the back of the chamber, but Theron raised his hand for silence. However, he said, and the cheers died. The human representative was correct when he stated that, if all species are precursor inheritors, then none have special claim over others. This creates a constitutional crisis for the Federation. Theron looked directly at Jiwan. You have challenged not just Earth's status, but the legitimacy of our entire governmental structure. You have proposed the Inheritor Accord as a solution. We will now vote on whether to adopt it. He gestured to the representatives. Each world will cast one vote. A simple majority is required. The question is this: shall we dissolve the current Federation hierarchy and establish a new government based on equal representation for all inheritor species? The voting began. It was not quick. Each world's representative stood and announced their vote. Some voted immediately. Others hesitated, conferring with advisors. Jiwan watched the count rise on the display screens. For every vote in favor, another came against. The numbers stayed close. Too close. Hours passed. The voting continued. Jiwan's hands gripped the podium until his knuckles turned white. Finally, the last vote was cast. The final count appeared on the screens. 7,247 in favor. 6,912 against. The Inheritor Accord had passed. The chamber erupted. Some beings cheered. Others shouted in protest. A few simply sat in stunned silence, trying to process what had just happened. Theron brought his gavel down repeatedly until order was restored. "The vote is decided," he announced. "The Inheritor Accord is adopted. Effective immediately. The Galactic Federation is dissolved. In its place, we establish the Inheritor Coalition. All member species, regardless of age or technological level, will have equal representation and equal access to resources." He paused. "This tribunal is adjourned. The Constitutional Assembly will convene in 30 days to draft the new government's charter. All worlds are invited to participate." The gavel fell one final time. As the chamber emptied, Ji-Wan remained at his podium. He had won. Earth was safe. Humanity had its place among the stars. But more than that, he had changed the fundamental structure of galactic civilization. Aliens approached him, some to congratulate, some to express anger. A few simply to thank him for revealing truth they had long suspected but never proven. Hectus, the Valorian scientist, was among them. His crystal body pulsed with colors Ji-Wan had not seen before. "I examined my people's key," Hectus said. "I experienced the memories. I saw the precursors. I understood their purpose." "And?" Ji-Wan asked. "And I owe you an apology. I called you a liar. I dismissed your evidence. I was wrong. You were skeptical. That is the mark of a good scientist. Perhaps." Hectus's colors shifted again. "But I was also afraid. Afraid that if you were right, everything I built my life on would be meaningless. My people's achievements, our technological superiority, all of it reduced to mere inheritance rather than earned greatness." "It is still greatness," Ji-Wan assured him. "What you build with inheritance matters more than the inheritance itself. The precursors gave us all the same foundation. What we constructed on that foundation is our own." Hectus considered this. "You are wiser than I gave you credit for. Human. I am just doing my best. Same as everyone." The Valorian departed. Others came and went. Finally, only Theron remained. "You should be proud," the magistrate said. "You saved your world and reformed the galaxy in the same trial. That is unprecedented. I did what was necessary. Yes. But necessary does not mean easy. The coming months will be difficult. There will be those who resist change. There may be violence." End quote. "I know," Ji-Wan said. "But at least now the violence will not be sanctioned by law. At least now, we are all equals." Theron nodded. "For what it is worth, I am glad you humans joined us. You bring something the galaxy needs. Perspective. The ability to question. The courage to challenge, even when the odds are against you. We call it stubbornness," Ji-Wan said with a small smile. "We call it leadership." Theron extended one clawed hand. "Welcome to the Inheritor Coalition, Representative Park. Try not to break it too quickly." They shook hands, or rather, hand to claw. Then, Theron left, leaving Ji-Wan alone in the empty tribunal hall. Ji-Wan activated his communication device one more time. "We won," he said simply. Her face broke into a smile. The first genuine smile he had seen from her in weeks. "You won. You actually did it. We did it. None of this would be possible without your research. So what happens now?" Ji-Wan looked around the empty chamber. "Now comes the hard part. Building something new. Making it work. Proving that equality is not just an ideal, but a practical reality. Think we can do it? I think we have to try." He ended the call and began gathering his materials. The following day brought unexpected visitors. Ji-Wan was in his quarters, preparing reports for Earth's government, when his door chimed. He opened it to find Magistrate Theron standing in the corridor. The ancient Keltheron was alone, without guards or attendants. "May I come in?" Theron asked. Ji-Wan stepped aside. "Of course, Magistrate." Theron entered and looked around the simple quarters with interest. Everything was human-sized, which meant the ceiling barely cleared his head. He folded his large frame into a chair that creaked under his weight. "I wanted to speak with you privately," Theron began. "Away from the tribunal. Away from politics." "About what?" "About the truth." Jiwan sat across from him. "I thought we already established the truth." None. "I thought we already established the truth. We established facts. But truth is more complicated." Theron's 4 eyes studied Jiwan carefully. "I need to tell you something. Something that will anger you. But you deserve to know." A cold feeling settled in Jiwan's stomach. "Go on." "I knew," Theron said simply. "Not everything, but enough. I knew about the precursors. I knew about the archive species. I knew that humanity's claim had merit." Jiwan stood abruptly. "You knew? Then why did you allow the challenge? Why put Earth through this trial?" "Because knowledge and acceptance are different things," Theron said calmly. "My people have guarded the key for thousands of years. We knew it was more than symbolic. We experienced the genetic memories, though we did not understand them. But to acknowledge that openly would mean admitting that our position of power was based on nothing but age." "So this was all theater?" Jiwan's voice was hard. "The trial, the evidence, the vote? No, it was necessary." Theron leaned forward. "Listen to me, Jiwan Park. I could not simply announce that the Federation was built on false premises. The elder species would have rejected it. There would have been violence. War. Even. The only way to change the system was to force them to confront the truth. Themselves. Using Earth as your tool. Using humanity as the catalyst," Theron corrected. "You were perfect for it. Young enough that your claims would be dismissed initially. Advanced enough to present credible evidence. Stubborn enough to fight despite the odds. I knew that if anyone could break through centuries of prejudice and pride, it would be humans." Jiwan paced the room, anger and understanding warring within him. "So you manipulated us. You set up the entire situation. I created an opportunity. You seized it. You presented evidence I did not know existed. You made arguments I had not anticipated. You exceeded every expectation." Theron's voice softened. "I may have opened the door, Jiwan Park. But you walked through it. On your own strength. Why are you telling me this now? Because what comes next will be harder than what came before. The Inheritor Coalition must be built from nothing. There will be resistance. There will be setbacks. There will be moments when you doubt whether any of this was worth it." Theron stood, his full height towering over Jiwan. "When those moments come, I want you to know that this was not chance. You were chosen, not by me alone, but by the circumstances of history, and you proved worthy of that choice." Jiwan stared at the ancient being. Slowly, his anger faded. "You could have just said nothing. Let me believe it was all our victory. I could have. But we are building a new galaxy on truth, not comfortable lies. You deserve the truth about this as well." They stood in silence for a moment. Then Jiwan extended his hand. Theron shook it. "Thank you for being exactly what the galaxy needed." After the magistrate left, Jiwan sat alone for a long time, processing what he had learned. The trial had been real. The danger had been real. But it had also been a stage, carefully set for humanity to prove itself. He found he was not angry anymore. Instead, he felt something like respect. Theron had seen the problem and engineered a solution. It took wisdom to know when the old ways had to end. It took courage to make it happen. 3 weeks later, Jiwan stood at the orbital platform above Nexus Prime, waiting for the Persistence to arrive. Captain Doyun had been given a new ship as compensation for the one destroyed during the evidence transport. This one was larger, faster, and better armed. A gift from the newly forming Inheritor Coalition. The ship materialized from faster-than-light travel with a flash of light. It was beautiful, all smooth lines and gleaming hull. nothing like the battered civilian transport Doyun had piloted before. When Doyun emerged from the airlock, he was grinning. "Now this is a ship worthy of making history in." "You are returning to Earth?" Jiwon asked. "Eventually. But first, I have a new assignment. The Coalition is forming an exploration fleet. Ships from every member species working together to map the old precursor sites. I have been asked to captain one of them. That is excellent news. Congratulations. What about you? Are you staying here?" Jiwon nodded. "Earth has appointed me as their representative to the Constitutional Assembly. I will be here for at least a year, helping to draft the new government charter." Doyun clasped his shoulder. "Then I will see you around the galaxy, Representative Park." They shook hands, and Doyun departed. Jiwon watched the new Persistence undock and glide away into the stars. Another chapter ending. Another beginning. The Constitutional Assembly convened the following week. Representatives from 7,000 worlds gathered in a massive chamber built specifically for this purpose. The diversity was staggering. Beings of every shape, size, and biology imaginable, all working toward the same goal. The debates were fierce. Every species had different ideas about how the coalition should function. Some wanted strong central authority. Others preferred loose confederation. Some species could not even agree among themselves. Jiwon found himself working 18-hour days, mediating disputes, drafting proposals, building consensus. It was exhausting. It was frustrating. It was also exhilarating. One evening, he was working late in the assembly chambers when Suji Nam contacted him. The xenolinguist appeared as a hologram. Excitement clear on her face. "Jiwon, we have decoded more of the precursor archives," she said. "You need to see this." "What did you find?" "A message. A direct communication from the precursors to their inheritors. It was hidden in the genetic memory, triggered only when multiple archive species accessed their keys simultaneously." "What does it say?" Suji's expression grew solemn. "I will send you the full translation. But the summary is this. The precursors did not disappear. They transcended. They uploaded their consciousness into something beyond physical form. But before they left, they wanted to ensure their children would not be alone. So they created us," Jiwon said softly. "Not created, guided. The archive species evolved naturally, but the precursors left genetic markers, knowledge seeds, cultural nudges. They shaped our development from afar, and they left us with a choice. What choice? Whether to follow them into transcendence or to forge our own path, they made it clear. Either option is valid. Either option honors their legacy. The choice is ours." Jiwon sat back, overwhelmed. "That is a conversation for another day. First, we need to build a government that works. I know, but I thought you should know. The galaxy is bigger than we imagined. The possibilities are endless." After Suji disconnected, Jiwon sat alone in the empty chamber. He thought about the precursors, beings so advanced they left physical form behind. He thought about the choice they offered, transcendence or independence. Either path led to the stars, but right now, humanity needed to focus on the present, on building something that worked, on proving that different species could coexist as equals. The months passed. The Constitutional Assembly made progress slowly, painfully, but steadily. A framework emerged. A government based on representation, not age. A system where resources were shared, not hoarded. It was imperfect. It had compromises that satisfied no one completely, but it worked. 6 months after the trial, the Inheritor Coalition officially formed. The ceremony was held in the same tribunal hall where Jiwon had first presented his evidence. But now it was filled with celebration instead of judgment. Jiwon stood on the platform where the 7 containers had once sat. Around him were representatives from every founding member of the coalition. Theron was there. No longer a magistrate, but an ambassador. Hectus attended, representing the Valorian worlds. The Nexari collective pulsed with joyful colors, and in the back, in a section reserved for honored guests, sat Captain Doyun and his crew, Hae-Min Choi, Suji Nam, and dozens of other humans who had made this moment possible. Theron approached Jiwan before the ceremony began. "How does it feel?" the old Keltheron asked. "Terrifying," Jiwan admitted. "We are making decisions that will affect billions of lives for generations. That is leadership, the weight of consequence." Theron's 4 eyes gleamed with something that might have been pride. "But you carry it well. I had a good teacher. You taught yourself." "I merely provided the stage." The ceremony began. Speeches were made in 100 languages. Pledges were sworn. Documents were signed. And when it was done, the Galactic Federation was officially gone, replaced by something new, something built on truth instead of tradition. Afterward, Jiwan found himself alone on an observation deck, staring out at the stars. He was exhausted, physically and emotionally. But he was also content. A voice spoke behind him. "Room for one more?" He turned to find Hae-Min standing there, smiling. "Always," Jiwan said. She joined him at the window. They stood together, in comfortable silence, watching the stars. "Do you ever wonder if we did the right thing?" Hae-Min asked eventually. "Every day. And I think the precursors left us a choice for a reason. They wanted us to decide our own future. We chose equality. We chose cooperation. We chose to build instead of conquer." Jiwan smiled slightly. "Maybe it will fail. Maybe it will succeed. But at least it will be ours." Very philosophical for someone who claims to be just an archaeologist. "I learned from the best. Ancient civilizations have a way of teaching humility." They laughed together. Then Hae-Min grew serious. "What happens now? For you, I mean. The assembly is finished. The coalition is formed. Your job is done," Jiwan considered. "Earth wants me to stay on as permanent representative. Build relationships. Help guide the coalition through its first years. Will you?" "I think so. This is important work. Someone has to make sure all those promises we made actually get kept. Then I guess I will be visiting Nexus Prime more often. Someone needs to keep you from becoming too diplomatic." "I would appreciate that." They stayed on the observation deck for hours, talking about the future, about the precursor sites waiting to be explored, about the genetic memories still being decoded, about the possibility that one day, humanity might face the same choice the precursors did. But that was far in the future. For now, there was work to do. A galaxy to rebuild, a coalition to nurture, and endless stars to explore. Jiwan looked out at those stars and felt something he had not felt since the trial began. Peace. Not because everything was resolved, but because the path forward was clear. The precursors had given them the foundation. Humanity and the other inheritor species would build on it. What they created would be their own, their achievement, their legacy, and that, Jiwan realized, was exactly what the precursors had wanted all along. Not children who followed blindly, but inheritors who chose their own way. He smiled. The future was uncertain. The challenges were immense. But for the first time in galactic history, every species faced those challenges as equals. That was worth fighting for. That was worth everything they had endured. In the distance, Earth was a blue dot among millions of stars. Home. And around it, a galaxy full of cousins, inheritors, family. Different in form, but united in purpose. The trial was over. The verdict was rendered. And the real story was just beginning. Jiwan took one last look at the stars. Then he turned and walked back into the station. There was work to do. A galaxy to build. And he would do it one day. One decision. One small step at a time. Just as humans always had. Just as they always would. The end of one story. the beginning of another, and the galaxy, watching with 10,000 eyes, waited to see what its inheritors would build together.